From KGW News, this is Straight Talk with Laurel Porter.
Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Laurel Porter. As Democrats and Republicans fight for control of the U.S. House, a local congressional race is in the national spotlight. It's the contest in Southwest Washington's 3rd District, where voters have a choice between Republican former Green Beret and Trump-endorsed Joe Kent and the Democrat from rural Skamania County who owns an auto repair shop, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez. It's a wide-open race after 6th-term incumbent Republican Jaime Herrera Beutler lost in the primary after voting to impeach former President Donald Trump. And now, the race once classified by the Cook Political Report as likely Republican has moved to being leans Republican. Some are calling it a toss-up race. Southwest Washington's 3rd District includes Clark County and stretches north to Lewis County and reaches from Pacific County on the coast to Skamania County in the east. It also includes Wahkiakum County and part of Thurston County. A week from Tuesday, voters will make their choice, and here to present their case to voters, I am pleased to have with us here in the studio candidates Marie Gluesenkamp Perez and Joe Kent. Thank you for joining us here on Straight Talk. It's a pleasure to have you both here.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
You both have very different views and visions for your district, for the country. Let's start there about what your vision is and how it's different than your opponents. And we'll begin with Joe Kent.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So my vision for the district and really overall our country right now is to end one-party rule in Washington, D.C. The last 2 years of one-party rule has absolutely been disastrous for our country and for our district. We have out-of-control inflation. Inflation is going to steal 1 month of wages from every single American throughout the entire country. We have crime that's completely and totally out of control thanks to a wide-open southern border. Enough fentanyl has been pumped into our country to kill many Americans multiple times over. It's #1 killer of people ages 15 to 50. So these real problems right here can all be laid solely at the feet of Democrat policies. Joe Biden opened up our border for an invasion on day 1. Democrats here in the district are releasing child killers in many cases from prison. We've had a complete and total erosion of law and order. The economy has been absolutely destroyed thanks to Democrat policies of killing off our ability to produce our own domestic energy and this massive omnibus spending, out of control government spending. That's what's driving inflation right now. And my opponent and Democrats throughout the country, they're trying to distract from these key issues that are hurting people in the district and throughout the entire country with all these other side issues that don't affect everyday Americans. So what I want to do is go to Washington, D.C. and put a check on one-party rule, end the career of Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House, and put a check on what Joe Biden has done to our economy, what he's doing to law and order.
Well, let's bring in Marie. What is your vision and how is it different from Joe's?
Well, I'm running to be an independent voice for Southwest Washington. I run an auto repair and machine shop with my husband, and there's only one person on the ballot that has actually created jobs, that's actually worked in the trades. And by the way, Joe, I'm glad that you could come back home to Portland to be here with us today and find time in your busy work schedule to do that. I believe that we have got to get our economy back on track. Small businesses like mine really are hurting. We've got to reshore manufacturing. We've got to support career and technical education. I didn't start an auto repair shop so that I could run for Congress. I do it because I believe that work is inherently noble. Fixing things, working for a living is inherently noble. And we've got to return that attitude to Congress. We've got to have a Congress that looks more like America. And that's one of the reasons that I won't vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker, because I believe that we need an independent voice representing Southwest Washington, which is what we've done for so long in Southwest Washington. Brian Baird and Jaime Herrera Beutler both stood up to their party when they needed to, and that's something I'll do too.
Well, #1 issue that really concerns Americans, of course, is inflation, the cost of living, the high price of gasoline, groceries, even like Halloween candy this year. And as Joe mentioned, a lot of people are blaming the Democrats. You're trying to distance yourself from the Democrats, but blaming the Democrats for what we see with inflation. What is your plan to try to bring down inflation? What measures do you support? And how can voters have confidence that you won't represent more of the same, Marie?
Yeah, listen, there have been global supply shocks driving our inflation. This is not the 1970s demand-driven inflation. And that's because for decades, both parties have been failing to support substantively small businesses, which are the backbone of our economy. The supply chains have been weakened and collapsing. We've got to get back to a place where we are building and making things in America again. My husband and I actually bought out a machine shop in 2020 because it was shutting down because they couldn't find apprentices. That's a real problem when auto shops like mine have to make their own parts to survive. We've got to start supporting career and technical education. One of the federal policies we can use to do that is ensure that federal Pell Grants are available not just for 2- and 4-year colleges, which are great if that's what you want to do, but also available for apprenticeship programs. You know, I'm willing to bet that many of the folks listening to the show right now are on a wait list for an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, a mechanic, and those are trades jobs that can't be offshored to China. So it's imperative that we rebuild our workforce, we regrow the trades, and support entrepreneurship.
And Joe, how is your plan different to bring down the cost of living, and why do we think that you'd have better results?
Everything she just mentioned, you can do all those things and they won't matter if we continue to spend trillions and trillions of dollars that we don't have. So she's on the record saying that she would support the major pieces of legislation that were passed through this last Congress, regardless of who was the speaker, whether it's Nancy Pelosi or not. So inflation's being driven by this massive amount of excessive government deficit spending via the omnibus system. She has said that she would support omnibus types of spending. Omnibus spending with the Fed continuing to print trillions and trillions of dollars that we don't have, that's what's driving inflation. I won't sign off on omnibus bills. I will be a good steward of the taxpayer dollars, cut excessive government regulation and government spending, and also get our energy economy back online. Joe Biden made a conscientious decision to kill off Keystone XL, to end exploratory drilling. Everybody remembers what gas prices were just 2 years ago. We need to return the era of American energy independence so that people aren't being strangled at the gas pump. So on day one, I want to say very plainly to the Biden administration, they will turn back on U.S. energy or we will withhold the federal budget. We have to hold their feet to the fire to give the American people some actual relief and then stop this insane spending. You can have all the different job programs and stuff that you want, but if you're continuing to spend money at deficit like this, it's going to make inflation out of control and it's going to crash the U.S. dollar.
Crime is rampant in a lot of big cities across the country, including we see a higher rate of crime in Portland, and Vancouver is no exception, parts of Southwest Washington. What do you want to do to try to reduce crime?
First and foremost, we have to seal off the southern border. I mean, Maria said that we don't need to build a southern border wall. We can't build a southern border wall. She wants to expedite judges down there, to expedite amnesty. We have to seal off the southern border. We have to build the wall. We actually have to get tough on the Mexican drug cartel.
I'm not going to let Joe lie about me. I believe in strong borders.
We have to get hard on the Mexican drug cartels. Let me finish, Marie. We have to get hard on the Mexican drug cartels. Stop the fentanyl from flowing into our country. Right now, there is no Democrat out there, candidate or elected official, that's actually taking a stand against Mexican drug cartel pumping fentanyl into our country. And that has to stop. That's number one. Second, here in the district, we have to make sure that our police officers can actually get out there and proactively police. The Democrats in Olympia passed a series of bills last October that took away the police's ability to go out and actively, proactively police and to start taking criminals off the streets. And they're getting rid of 3 strikes and you're out. Now, these same Democrats, like Sharon Wiley, have endorsed Marie. And so now we have them letting prisoners go, violent criminals, onto the streets of Vancouver potentially. So the Democrat policies at every level, it's open borders and open prisons.
Let's let Marie respond here.
That's ridiculous, Joe. I believe that every country, America, has a right and a responsibility to know who is coming into and what is coming across our borders. I support strong borders.
But not a wall.
A wall is less effective than the electronic systems we already have. We just need to fund them fully and implement them, and also ensure that our southern border is secure, that we are funding law enforcement to be down there and monitoring it.
So you don't want to surge judges down there anymore, like you said before?
We need a surge of judges to process the cases of people who are coming here looking for not amnesty, but asylum.
Right, asylum and amnesty are basically the same thing, and you have to process asylum in a third country. Trust me, I didn't. When we were pulling out of Iraq, I was actually processing a lot of the asylum and amnesty claims myself. It takes time. You need to do it in a third country to do it safely. But if you surge judges down there to give asylum or amnesty, you are creating an incentive for more illegal immigration. That's that's the demand signal sent from South America.
Joe Kent has been on the record saying he wants to ban all immigration for 20 years. To reestablish a white majority.
I've never said that. I said
You agreed with them when they said that.
I did not. That entire
It's on
exchange.
tape, Joe.
No, it's not on tape. If you go back and you look at the tape, I just got done arguing with the white nationalist clowns, and then I was turning to someone else, and they completely and totally misquoted me.
I
want to have economic immigration.
Mean?
I don't believe that we should be importing massive amounts of people on H-1B visas that take away jobs from people that are working in the tech sector. I don't believe that we should be bringing across a lot of illegal immigrants or people specifically to work in the trades, to work in manual labor. I think the priority of our country has to be to put our people first. If we have all these different job programs and we say that we're going to bring back our manufacturing, but we continue to import people to take away jobs from Americans, we are destroying American working families.
Do you think Americans want to do some of the farm labor that immigrants are doing?
I think we need to have a culture that actually rewards work, but we can't
What
always
What Joe wants is $40 cranberry sauce. And that is why so many people in the agricultural industry are supporting me, because at a time of record high grocery prices, Joe Kent's plan to ban all immigration for 20 years would put food prices through the roof. It would collapse the agricultural industry.
Well, let me jump to
We can bring over seasonal.
Okay,
we can easily bring over seasonal workers with seasonal visas. We just have to make sure they leave at the end of it and they're not given amnesty. Right now, the massive amounts of amnesty that are continually given, especially stapled onto farm bills by Republicans and Democrats, that's what incentivizes these folks to stay in the country, pass their visa, and then systemically take jobs away from Americans.
Let me jump to another, in the interest of time, another subject on abortion, because you both really differ on this subject. Even though Roe v. Wade was overturned, there's still protections in Washington state by law and in Oregon for the right to an abortion. Now, you've said to me on Straight Talk when you were here in May that you believe that life begins at conception.
I do.
Do you want to see the Washington right to abortion overturned in Washington state?
I'm running for a federal position, so yes, I would. I mean, if I was running for state house or for governor, that would be my position.
And you would like to see a federal ban on abortion. Would you vote for that in Congress if it comes up?
The problem is with a federal ban in Congress right now in a post-Roe era is that the courts would throw it out. The courts, the courts have ruled that it needs to go back to the states, and so
Joe,
I'm okay if it be in the states. But
okay, you did tell me though that you would vote for a federal ban.
For a federal ban on abortion, it would be kind of a waste of time at this point.
But you would vote for one. Are you saying you wouldn't vote for one?
It would just, to bring it to the floor would probably be,
so
a,
is that a no vote?
Be a waste of time.
Can I say that's a no vote for you?
If it comes up, if there's a chance to fight for life, I'm going to fight for life.
So you'd vote for yes. Would you have any exceptions for incest, rape, or the life of a mother?
Life of the mother, absolutely, always. I mean, look, I don't think having to triage when the mother is in crisis, I don't view that as an abortion. Doctors have to make triage.
So who's going to decide when the life of the mother is at risk?
Doctors decide that.
Some 20-year-old staffer working for Mitch McConnell. That's your plan.
No, it's a doctor.
It's having somebody show up and say, prove that your miscarriage was really, an accident, that it wasn't your fault, that you didn't do something. You want the sheriffs showing up at someone's door.
No one's talking about that. No one's talking about sheriffs. That's just
how
ridiculous
else would this be
tactics.
Implemented, Joe?
No.
How else would this be implemented?
It's not
the thing is, Laurel, is that what women want in Washington state does not matter to Joe. We have been very clear about our values in Washington state, and that's not what's important to him.
And that's where the states' rights issues come in. Roe is the law of the land. Roe has been struck down, sent back to the states. Now, look, abortion is a hot topic, and I understand this, and I'm pro-life. I believe life begins at conception. The Democrats right now, and Marie's stance of not limiting abortion, no limits on abortion up to the 9th month.
Do you support any limits on abortion?
No, because
up to 9 months. We can terminate a pregnancy at 9 months.
You can't say what's going on. What federal bill is going to address all of the nuance of what could be going on in any of those pregnancies? That doesn't exist.
But there are people who say your view is extreme, that you support abortion all the way.
There are cases when a 9-month abortion would be very, very extreme. Nobody wants that. That's not something that is a tragedy when that's a necessity.
Let me ask you something about questions, Joe, that have been swirling around. And Marie was sort of inferring in her opening statement about questions about your employment. It came up with the Daily Beast publication. They were looking into the company you said you worked for, American Enterprise Solutions, and they couldn't find any evidence that existed. KGW looked, but it turns out you said it was all a clerical error, a typo that actually named something else. It changed its name to Advanced Enterprise Solutions. Can you clear that up for us?
Yeah, when I onboarded with the company, it was American Enterprise Solutions, AES. I've always said AES or American Enterprise Solutions. It changed a couple years ago to Advanced Enterprise Solutions. So we corrected the documents with the FEC and with the House Ethics Committee. I've done 7 in-person town halls since that article came out. I wasn't even aware of the article until a couple days ago. No one in the district, no voter, has asked me once about this. What they're concerned with is 1 month of their wages being stolen by inflation.
Let me go back, because I do have a few more questions about that. The Daily Beast said it was like you repeated that misstatement 34 some times, which seems like a lot of misstatements for a clerical error. And now you have an ex-campaign manager who worked for you last year saying that you never worked an hour for that company, that he called it a phantom company, that he did your scheduling, and said that you're essentially being paid for campaigning.
I fired him for not doing enough work for me.
But what do you actually do for the company? Can you tell us what you do?
Yeah, I'm a project manager.
But what do you do, like on a
I
daily basis?
hire subcontractors. I do a good deal of managing how much progress is being made on the tasks that they've been assigned, that we've hired them for. So it's a good deal of working with cellular towers, Wi-Fi construction, those types of issues.
And you've said that you don't support omnibus spending and big spending. You disagree with all the spending that Congress did during the pandemic, trillions of dollars. But the company you work for actually got a PPP loan, a Paycheck Protection Program loan, that helped pay for employees, including yourself, during the pandemic. Do you think that was a good program? Would you have voted for that program?
Well, the problem with it is that the government took away everyone's ability to open their business, right? And then they came back and said, now that we've taken away your ability to open your business, now we'll give you some money. It's ridiculous. The shutdowns never should have happened anyways.
Weren't you working remotely?
I work remotely, but there's actually a corporate office.
So that's
many
my
of our
question.
employees do too.
When you sign your emails for your work, your actual job, like, isn't the name of the company at the bottom of your email signature?
No.
Well, you said it was AES. I think you said it was.
Everybody calls it AES. I mean, we don't wear uniforms and go into an office.
And Kent's campaign's pointing to something about your own employment. They sent this to the Daily Beast, this article that appeared in the Clark County today that cited a lawyer's press release, a Vancouver lawyer's press release, based on some emails from the Stevenson Downtown Association when you were applying for executive director expanded.
Yeah, and
let me I'll just finish just to say that the Stevenson Downtown Association has refuted the claim, saying that you left your job abruptly. That's what the lawyer said, and that you didn't get along with volunteers, that there were questionable circumstances. That very day that article came out, the Stevenson Downtown Association put out their own press release saying those allegations are false. But can you just give us your take on it, what happened when you left?
Yeah, Joe Kent is dragging up a small rural nonprofit into a political dogfight to try and slander me and distract them from the important economic work they're doing in rural Skamania County and Skamania County. So, it is lies. It's just more lies to distract from the reality. I'm really proud of the work I did there. I was a contract employee. I left when the contract expired. That's not getting fired. I mean, this is just slandering people.
You reapplied and didn't get the job later on.
I did not accept the contract they offered me.
Okay.
We left. And I'm proud of the work I did there, and they immediately refuted it. He went out and hired Joey Gibson's lawyer to try and pull Freedom of Information Act and waste everyone's time. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
And again, we should say that the Stevenson Downtown Association says that they left parted on amicable terms.
So resumes are important, and I encourage people to look at my military resume, how I served for 20 years. And I think her resume, give it the test. But really, at the end of the day, these little anecdotes and the back and forth insults, like, does that really matter? Is that going to address inflation? Is that going to address crime? The real issues that we actually hire people to go to Congress and fight for, like, none of this matters. These little anecdotes about, who lives in what community.
I think it does matter if you work for a living. I think it does. I think it matters
well, I most certainly work
signing
for a living,
your
Marie.
checks.
I most certainly work for a living.
Who is signing your checks? When are you working?
That's all been fully disclosed. And as a matter of fact, I have released all 3 years of my last 3 years tax
photos
returns.
of the first page.
No. We're releasing my full tax returns. That includes all of them.
And,
are you going to release yours?
And that is the question, Joe.
Marie,
when are you working?
Are you going to release yours?
Who is signing your checks? Who's paying you to run against Jamie Herrera Butler and run against me today?
My boss at AES. I work remotely like many people do.
Okay, candidates Marie and Joe, we have to stop there because we're running out of time, but we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, the candidates get to ask each other a question. We're back after the break. Welcome back to Straight Talk. I'm Laurel Porter. We're talking with the candidates in Southwest Washington's 3rd Congressional District, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez and Joe Kent. Once again, welcome to the show. I had a question for Marie because the Washington Post had a report out this week that said that because of the beating the economy is taking, that the tide seems to be shifting towards Republicans, and they're having to shore up their efforts for the Democrats, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and they're focusing their money in other places and essentially abandoned your campaign. They're not giving you any money. I mean, how does that feel? I mean, it must sting.
Well, I am proud to be running an independent race, and I'm proud that my dollars are by and large coming from Washington State. I haven't been fundraising in Dallas, Texas, or Mar-a-Lago or Washington, D.C. This race is a grassroots race being funded by people in Washington State. And so I'm really proud to continue to be an independent voice for our district. And so it's frustrating that, the DCCC is doing their own thing, but I'm really proud of continuing to run an independent race.
Do you think that they abandoned your race too soon? Do you think you can win this race?
Well, my opponent has not been endorsed by any of the federal elected Republicans, Kathy McMorris Rodgers, Dan Newhouse, Jamie Herrera Butler. I've been endorsed by many Republicans in our district. And so I'm really proud to have a lot of bipartisan support because they recognize there's only one moderate on the ballot.
Do you want to respond to that, Joe?
Yeah, I'm endorsed by the former head of the vice chair of the Democrat National Convention, Tulsi Gabbard. I'm endorsed by Washington State Republicans, so that covers all the Republican elected officials in the state, unless they specifically come out and say otherwise. So, plenty of endorsements. I mean, I think that this is just more distractions from the key issues here. So, I had to fight a hard-fought primary, so I didn't get any support whatsoever from the Republican establishment. I had $12 million spent against me, all by pretty much Republican groups. So, that's why I had to aggressively fundraise. I'm not taking any corporate PAC money. I've done it all without taking any corporate PAC money, and I'm going to continue that as a congressman.
Well, we have time for you each to ask a question. So, Joe, let me let you ask Marie a question, and she can ask you one.
Marie, if you're sticking up for blue collar and working class people, why do you advocate putting tolls on the I-5 bridge? That is going to disproportionately affect people in Clark County, especially folks working in the trades that have to travel into the Portland metropolitan area. It's really just going to be a huge tax on the residents of Clark County in favor of the residents in Multnomah County, where your business is.
You and I actually agree that tolls are a regressive tax. I do not advocate for tolls. I'm not out here asking for tolls.
My
job is to bring back the most dollars we can from the federal government, and that's how we're going to reduce the cost of tolls. There are existing programs, means-tested programs, to ensure that people who are on lower incomes or fixed incomes have a means-tested pass to not pay those tolls. Tolls are a reality. I'm not advocating for them. I'm just saying there are a lot of projects out there fighting for federal dollars, and tolls are an inevitable part of the funding package.
So you've already surrendered and said we're going to have tolls on there, and the people that aren't low income, they're going to have to pay more.
Meanwhile, Joe, you have been very clear. You won't sign an omnibus bill.
No.
You're going to let those federal dollars go to other states and solve their problems.
We'll do we can do standalone bills.
Let's let you ask Joe a question because we're running out of time.
So, Joe, you're already on the record saying that you want to defund the FBI, but you're also on camera saying that you will not send federal dollars to state agencies, state police that aren't enforcing the law that you think they should be enforcing. So right now, today, would you vote to send federal dollars, any federal dollars, to the state of Washington's police departments?
To Jay Inslee? No. If it's controlled by Inslee, absolutely not. Seattle is a failing sanctuary city. I feel the same way over here in Portland about Oregon. Why would we send federal dollars to cities and to governors who will not enforce law and order?
So you're going to defund our police departments?
What I will do is I will take the federal law enforcement grants and I will give them to sheriffs. Sheriffs are actually elected by the people. They're accountable to people. I will hold the FBI accountable and make sure they're actually doing federal law enforcement, securing our borders, going after members of the Mexican cartel, going after your friends in Antifa that you were helping support during the summer.
I'm not going to let you lie about. I have no
it's on your social
harbor
media.
for
Let me jump in here because I want to give you each the opportunity to have a final thought for our viewers. About 30 seconds to 40 seconds. Joe Kent, final thought.
Yeah, can you afford 2 more years of one-party control in Washington, D.C.? The answer is you can't. 1 month of your wages or more in many cases is going to be stolen from you thanks to the inflation because of omnibus spending that she, as you can hear, is a massive fan of, thanks to our energy economy being absolutely destroyed, out-of-control crime. It's not safe to walk down the streets thanks to Democrats in this country. The out-of-control fentanyl targeting our children, and then Democrats that have endorsed Marie that she refuses to distance herself from, letting child killers out of prison. As far as law and order goes, as far as your pocketbook goes, we have to end one-party rule in D.C.
Okay, Marie,
I am not here to be a cheerleader for any party. I'm here to be an independent voice for Southwest Washington. I fix things for a living. Joe Kent wants to break things. I want to build bridges. Joe Kent wants to burn bridges down. You know, I will work for our district. I will be honest. I will be accountable. I will listen. This district has a strong record of electing independent voices, and I will stand up for the best interests of our district and be accountable to our district. We don't know who's signing Joe Kent's checks.
Well, candidates, I want to thank you both for being here on Straight Talk. And to find out more about the candidates, you can check out their websites, joekentforcongress.com and marieforcongress.com. And we ran out of time to talk about a lot of different issues, so the candidates have graciously agreed to stay a little bit longer for a bonus episode of Straight Talk that you can find on our podcast. Listen there. Just search for KGW Straight Talk wherever you get your podcasts. Ballots are out, so be sure to vote. Election Day is Tuesday, November 8th. And join us next week when my guests are candidates for Portland City Council, current Commissioner Joanne Hardesty and her challenger Renee Gonzalez. We'll see you next week for Straight Talk. Have a great week.